Hi, I'm Darian and I'm the creator behind DE Media Design, and today I have Amanda Burman with Burman Photography, and this is part 2 of how to work well with photographers. Basically, we're just going to kind of chit chat and talk about things that we like and don't like about working with photographers and videographers in general, not just each other, but we work a lot together. We do a lot of weddings together, and so we have a lot of experience working together, and so we just want to give some of our advice of what works well for us and how we do it. So let's jump right in. All right, so in part 1, I did talk about how important it is to reach out to the photographer and vendors in general beforehand, especially if you don't know them, just to introduce yourself and let them know that you're going to be working together. But we wanted to elaborate on that a little bit of how to go about that and what the benefits are exactly.
So as a photographer, I know that I do send out like a request for other vendors. So I'm not waiting necessarily always for a videographer to reach out to me. Sometimes I'll reach out first. We're big proponents of video. So if I see you on Instagram, like I'm gonna like send you a video message so you know I'm not a creeper. Like we're really big on video.
That is a good though, because even a voice message, because then they kind of get your personality and
you're almost excited to get back to them too.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So reaching out, but that doesn't just lead to like, okay, good, I know who's going to be there. It leads to having a better relationship on the wedding day. Like, hey, how are you? How are the kids? You know, like we hit it off right away. We've done a video before where we're stretching together because it's funny, and like it's important to do that. I've shown up at weddings and didn't even know there was a videographer. Like I wasn't aware they would even have one. Or it's like a family friend. So that's always another battle in itself.
So is that because you didn't reach out, or is that because they never told you there was going to be a videographer?
They never told me, and this is a whole other platform we can talk about, but sometimes videography is something saved for the last minute. Like it's like the bonus. Yep. It's a bonus thing, and so they might have added it on since that vendor list has been put in, or a family friend's getting into it and they just want to do it for free. Yeah. So they don't feel like they're putting it on a vendor list because they're not paying for it.
So if you are a bride, it's very important that you let your photographers and videographers know, because we do work very close all day. Yes. Like the florist you might see, a little bit in the morning, but like, we are together all day. So it's very important that we do know that each other is going to be there.
Yeah,
I think.
For sure. So. We need to be our own advocate for each other too, because there's been times where a bride will say like, I just need the videographer for 6 hours, but I want you for 8 hours. Yeah. I'm like, why? Like, what if I get all the details and the videographer is not there? Don't you want that? And touching base beforehand will do that. You'll be able to go, okay, what are you thinking? 8 hours, I've been to this venue. You haven't? Great, they have one. Like being able to talk back and forth just builds for the wedding day, because if we're working well together and we're laughing and we're having fun and we're calming the group, like that speaks volumes and will get you hired more than the end result. Yeah.
Because they see you get along with people and you're likable. And another thing, I have met with photographers in person beforehand. I don't think that's always necessary, but even like a quick phone call or FaceTime, just especially if you don't know them, like just kind of to get yourself familiar with each other, because like I said, you're working so close together all day long. Like you're pretty much together all day long, and then when it comes to dinner, you're gonna sit together because you don't have anyone else to sit with. So
we have booked more weddings together after the first 3 or so that we did, because of our personalities clicking so well. And so, unmarried bridesmaid or, groomsmen, they go, oh, we want Darian and Amanda because they were fun. Like, and you're calming. There will be, at every wedding, there will be one high tense situation. It might be doing family portraits. It might be, I don't know, before the ceremony, but having us there and we're relaxed and we're excited to work together, it really does give a calming feeling, for everyone involved. Yeah, so I think touching base has a bigger ripple than just saying, hi, I'm Amanda, or hi, I'm Darian. It's building a relationship because you're going to be together all day. The second thing that we both really, I think, believe in is that 2 creative minds work better than 1. I know that I, as a photographer, have walked in, and I'm a dominating personality, and she would agree with that.
I mean, I thought I was outgoing until I met her. So.
But it's important for me, especially if I do all the flat lays, by the end of the day, if it's a 10-hour day, I'm running on fumes on creative juices, okay? So having another creative mind there, which I believe every videographer is creative, like chiming in. Of course, I'm gonna set up the flat lays. I'm gonna have it how I want it for a picture. And then I will look to my videographer, especially Darian, and say, what do you think? And then sometimes she'll add in like, oh, I know, like feathers. Movement, or put feathers in the foreground, which I always love. I never think about foreground stuff with flat lays, and you always do because of video. It's awesome. So just working well together as creative minds and not thinking you're stepping on the other person's shoes. I don't know how you felt working with photographers.
Well, not necessarily from working, but I've talked to photographers. Usually, especially when it's a new photographer, like once we get to know each other well, I'll ask them like, hey, have you had, like, what's your experience working with videographers? Because, you know, I want to know so that I can be better and inform other videographers when they ask. But I've been told that they feel like sometimes the videographer can just follow along and just kind of, you know, their words, but like copy everything that they're doing. Like they do all this work to set up the shot and have their shot list ready. And so they set up the shot and then the videographer just comes in and says, okay, I'm good. Like, no.
That is frustrating.
Yeah. So, and I agree. Like we both, like you said, we're both creative. Like, you know, you can step in and, you know, set up your own shot and add some movement to it or whatever. But also I think it can kind of go both ways of like, there can be photographers at times that just keep moving on and don't give you a chance. So I think like, you know, my advice to photographers would be just asking like, hey, you know, what's your input on this? Or like, did you get what you needed? And then that's when I can step in and be like, okay, I'm going to have you guys do this. And then usually it ends up being a great shot for you too.
Oh yeah. So there are many times where she'll do that. I'm like, oh, can I grab that too? Yeah. Which I think that's like the biggest compliment from a videographer to a photographer and back and forth is go, oh, can I grab that too? Like that's me. I'm like, yeah. Of course you can. I'll hold the veil for you.
Because
like,
half the time you think of something I would never think of and vice versa.
Yes,
so.
Vice versa. It's very much like you need to work together and not think of it as like, I think sometimes photographers, and myself included when I first started, they're almost treated like a second shooter.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. They're not getting paid like a second shooter, that's for sure. They're not meant to get your bags. They're not meant to get your lens caps. Like, not to treat them that way. Like, they are a creative who is there too.
So before we mentioned like giving enough time, but I just want to elaborate on that a little bit more. For photography, you set up your shot and you click and you're done. But for videography, you can't just like hold your camera up for 1 second and like get the shot that you need. Even if I'm having movement, like I count to 5 to make sure that I have enough time and post like to edit that shot. And so a lot of times if, you know, photographers can be like click, click, click and like moving on really fast. And for videographers, I feel like we need a little bit more time to get our shots.
And I didn't know that when we first started. Like I was so fast, and that was almost.
But you don't think about it.
I don't, and I needed someone to go, wait, hey, I need more time. Yeah. And that's where I was like, you're right. You're doing video. That would make sense.
Yeah.
But I didn't have anyone to tell me to slow down. And it's funny now because we've done enough styled shoots together where Darian is like, look, we have all the time in the day. Stop going so fast. I'm like, you're right. You're right. I need to slow down.
Another thing we wanted to touch on was lighting. And one thing I just wanted to stress, especially to photographers, is a lot of times a lighting situation that works really well for you doesn't work as well for me. And the best example we have for that is like backlighting. Amanda loves backlighting. She like almost all day she will do that. But I had to kind of come in and say, okay, that looks good for some of my shots, but I can't always have that backlighting because editing videos and posts is a lot different than editing photos.
It really is. I can bring up exposure and fix skin tone much easier than you can in video.
Another thing is like the flash. Like, so she doesn't really use a flash because she uses my light now at this point, but when photographers in the reception are using this flash, like that shows up in the video and it is what it is. Like I don't cut that out, but you know, it's what's going on. But that video light like really just helps like light it up the whole time for everybody, and usually it does end up benefiting the photographer. So if you are a videographer and you don't have a reception light, invest because it looks so much better.
And if you have I have a speed light system that when I don't have a videographer on hand, I'll just use, and I have 3 lights that I pop up in the corner of all the rooms and they shine down, right? Which is great when it's just me, not a problem. But when she brings the lights, it's really cool. I'll just put the flash on top of my camera and create really cool things too. So embracing the light changes and knowing what's good for one and not the other and things like that. All right, something else you want to touch on, this is very much a photographer point of view, is ceremony setups. Darian and I have it down to an art now where we stay on the same sides and we'll kind of talk through where we're going to be when and where. My biggest complaint when I first started working with videographers a lot was they would put a tripod in the middle of the aisle or the middle of the, whatever you want to, it could be outside, but just a middle section so I could never get a grand wide shot because the tripod was right in the middle. So I know a lot of you are trying to capture the entire ceremony, but why don't you tell us what you do to kind of aid that so that I can make sure I still get those big wide angle shots?
Yeah, so honestly in a church, like the best scenario is if they have a balcony, because I feel like I can just set up and continuously roll in the balcony the whole time. That works out really well for me. Of course, that's not always the situation. A lot of time, and you know, tell me if you don't like this, because a lot of times what I'll do is you know, and usually I do have a second shooter and we have multiple camera angles set up, but the one shot in the back on the tripod is I'll kind of have it off to the side, you know, obviously as the bride is walking down the aisle, and then, you know, kind of move it to the center, but then she knows. A lot of times though too, like I just say like, it's okay if you need to cut in front of it real quick, like to get your shot, because it's continuously rolling, but I have other cameras going, so I'm not gonna miss that shot. But I kind of like move it to the center, and then I'll move it back out kind of like when they're getting ready to kiss, because I know that that's when you're going to be center aisle, and that shot is important to everybody. And then I will shoot that by hand. So
that's like our system. And I know if it's in the middle for her, it won't be there the entire time.
Yeah.
So that's something I would really urge photographers and videographers to talk about, is the ceremony setup, because you can't be like, hey, you can't like yell across anything. You need to have it ready to go. And we do, like, there are days that we've had weddings where I have second shooter and she has second shooter. So we're doing the communicating, and then we communicate to our second shooters what's going to happen or where I want. I think we can get a little bossy, which I don't really care. Like, I'm paying you. I'm paying you. I want you to sit in that aisle and take those pictures. And I tell them that not because I don't want you to take a lot of pictures to my second shooter, but I need you out of the way. I need you out of the way.
Vice versa though, from a videographer's point of view, it can be really frustrating when the photographer is standing in the middle of the aisle almost the whole time too, because I have had that in, like, they'll sit in that bench, but then they step out like constantly, and then that really ruins my main shot too. It's like, I think it's cool, like, to set, you know, get that shot a few times, but like to have someone there the whole time, that ends up, you know, same thing.
You don't need to be there the entire time. If the photographer's watching, you don't need to be there the entire time.
Yeah.
So the videographer, like, you're not there to capture every 14 seconds of the ceremony. She's there to capture every second of the ceremony. Yeah. So I need my couple shots, and then she's going to get the rest of it. So you got to realize that too. If they're there, they're not looking for 14 shots of the same setup.
And lastly, we just want to touch on knowing your professional worth. So from one videographer to another, I just want to say, just because you were hired second or last doesn't mean you're any less important than any of the other vendors that are there. So again, kind of going back to not just standing in the background and not saying anything and just kind of shooting, you need to have a voice, and you need to be professional about it, but stand up and get the shots that you need, because again, like, you're getting paid, and just like the photographer is getting paid.
I think it's important too that, like, I want to make professional connections, and if you don't come across professional, I'm not going to be excited to work with you again. Like, you're not helping my brand by sitting back or being quiet, or what you're wearing and how you're speaking, like your attitude. Like, there are a lot of things that build into that. And I think one of the reasons Derry and I do click so well is, like, I have a lot of, I don't know, ambition isn't the word. It's like, I want to reach a certain goal for my business. And to do that, I need professional people around me. Yeah. And she's one of them. And part of that comes from, you know, how you dress, how you talk, what you provide on a wedding day. And something that I think can be just a 180 off of our conversation, but, like, I'm capturing pictures and video of you, and you're doing the same for me. Video is very important in marketing, so why wouldn't you want to be seen as professional for later on things, especially if you're working with a photographer you love, and then you guys connect and start even marketing that way too. But I did want to back up and talk a little about clothing. Yeah. I know it's something.
Well, you have an experience, so
I do. Go off of that. I have an experience. I've had several experiences actually, where, like, I'm there. Obviously, I'm ready. I'm professional. I'll let you kind of talk about the professional clothing in a second. But, like, someone showed up in jeans. Mind you, I wasn't wearing jeans. I don't think jeans are really ever appropriate to wear to a wedding. I'm just going to throw that out there. You don't have to like it, but if you show up in jeans, I'm judging you a little bit. Professionally, not as a person. So just what they were wearing, how they were talking. At one point, they were smoking a cigarette during the first look, like that kind of stuff. Like, really? Like,
yeah, so I got this advice from Forestry Films, but they said, you don't want to dress like a vendor, because you've been building this relationship with your clients, the bride and groom. I shouldn't even say client, because you're building a friendship. You've been getting to know them for 6 months to a year, however long, planning their wedding day, getting all these details. So at this point, you want to build that relationship and be more of a friend. So you don't want to dress like a vendor, but you don't want to dress tacky. So you just need to find that balance of, like, you know, not just blending in with all the other vendors, but like standing out and looking professional.
We really do want you to understand how important it is as a videographer and a photographer to respect each other's professionalism. Like, I'm never going to talk down to a videographer because I know it's expensive, and I know you're working hard, and I know the editing takes time. Like, and vice versa.
Yeah.
When I'm treated that way too, it's like almost like a friendship of understanding and professionalism. Yeah. I really encourage you. And the only way you're going to get that is if you give it and you kind of exude it as well.
Because no one's going to respect you if you don't respect them.
I'm going to cheers you on that one.
Yeah. Thanks for Thanks for watching. If you want to see more of Amanda's work, you can check out I'll have her Instagram and website linked below. If you like this video, give it a subscribe and a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.